said, I mean, there's no one like me trying.
What's up? It's Paris Hart, and you're tuning into another episode of the Love of It podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting with a quite talented individual. She's a singer, songwriter, and an actress. Hailing from Los Angeles, we got Lilli Passero.
Hey.
So, first things first, how would you say being in LA has impacted not only you, but also your career?
Oh my gosh. I grew up in LA, so I feel like it's impacted me in a very specific way, and not necessarily the same way it's impacted other natives to the city. Um, I feel like because I grew up here and because my parents were in the entertainment industry out here, it both gave me an inside look into things, but then also kind of made me jaded at an early age because I kind of saw all the baloney so early on that I was like, I'm never going to be that way. And in some ways, it was really good because it kept me really, really grounded in situations that were harder for someone maybe from the middle of the country or a small town or a place that has no connection to the entertainment industry. It would maybe be harder for that person to stay grounded. So in that way, it was really good. And then like kind of a flip side of it was because I saw some of the baloney involved, it kept me from always throwing myself fully into it, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's, I don't know if I have enough perspective on it to give it one final evaluation of it was good or it was bad. I think I'm lucky that I can see what was good about it and what was challenging about it.
Nice. And you talked about how your parents were in the industry. How would you say that affects your support system, or like that either helped, or I know you touched on it, but like how would you say they made sure that okay, Lily's doing this, she's doing it well, and like let's keep her protected and safe so she doesn't have to go through the baloney that person A, B, and C went through?
Um, it's really been a blessing. I mean, there have been moments where it's challenging because you just want your parents to be your parents and not, involved in your career at all. But I can't ignore the huge blessings that have come from it, whether it's them sharing stories with me about experiences they've been through or, a little healthy nepotism. Nobody's gonna say no if it's there. I my first role that I ever had in anything was a little indie feature that my dad had done my parents had done the casting on. I can't remember if it was just my dad or if it was both my parents because they were partners for years in casting. But that yeah, one of my first roles was doing that. And now my sister is actually a talent agent, so the like there have been times where she's like seen there's a submission for something and she's like, oh, you're really right for that, you should have your reps send you out for it or things like that. So we always try to have a healthy separation around it, or at least I do. I like to try and have as many healthy boundaries as possible, because for a long time I wouldn't accept their help because I got really unclear about just what I even wanted. And so I felt like I had to do everything that was given to me as opposed to making decisions for myself. So ultimately, it really has been a blessing and a learning experience. But there were some kinks to figure out for a minute there, and they actually don't know anything about the music industry, so they have no hands in that. Although they did have a hand in how I ended up on The Voice, but other than that, they don't know anything about the music industry. So that's like my little zone.
Hey, so for all the listeners out there listening, how did you get onto The Voice? And just big ups for doing so well on the show.
Thank you. Okay, so my dad had hosted an evening at shout out to the Gardenia. If you guys know what the Gardenia is, it is a very old. I don't know if it's technically a cabaret room, but it's a very old theater in Los Angeles where you can sit and have dinner while you're watching a show. And when you walk inside, you feel like you have stepped into old Hollywood. It's definitely a relic. And my dad was doing a show there because he still likes to perform. And he asked me to open for him. So I opened and I did like 3 or 4 songs. And one of his friends said, Lily should do The Voice. And people had said things like that to me before, but I was very anti reality TV and like any kind of competition setting because um, competition and people being pitted against each other just kind of gives me anxiety. And I have, I think, a natural competitive nature within me, but I never was one of those people that was like, throw me in, like, I'm going to kill it. Um, so I had just never taken suggestions like that seriously. And I also wasn't sure if it would be like a positive move since I was also trying to be an actress. You know, you just never know if something's going to help or hurt or whatever. I was very in my head about it, just scared. Um, and because my heart wasn't in doing it, my dad knew I wasn't going to go stand in line for a million hours to audition. So we ended up, small world, which the whole world is small, but especially in LA, we ended up knowing someone who worked for the show. And I didn't realize that some people got to do private auditions. And so I like submitted, or I guess my dad submitted me to this person, and they were like, "Oh my god, I actually know Lilli, and of course we would love to have her audition." So I got to just audition without going through the whole long line situation, which, major props to those people because that is a dedication that I probably could use some of. I'll wait in line to like eat somewhere, but not to be judged. Um, so yeah, I got to audition, and then the audition went really well, and the rest is history.
Wow. And I just got to touch on what you said. That is a lot of anxiety building up. If you have to wait in line for that many hours just to be judged.
Yeah, I know. It really, it's an admirable thing to do for the people who do it. I have major respect for them and have no desire to do it myself.
That's tough. But speaking of like the anxiety and pressure, being on TV and being seen nationwide, what was that like? And how did you really grow in that moment? Because it had to be such a crazy thing to experience.
It was terrifying. I remember because I had stage fright my entire life up until this point. I haven't really dealt with it much since The Voice because I was able to really deal with it and like walk through it in a big way being on that show. So up until that point, I'd had terrible stage fright, anxiety. I didn't know what it meant to be like grounded in myself. And so I remember I had to make it about everybody else. Sometimes it's not healthy to do that. You want to make it about yourself or like about what you're going through. But in the situation of performing, I found it really humbling and grounding to make it about everybody else because if it wasn't about me, then it didn't matter if I did it, if I, gave a perfect performance or not. It just mattered if I like connected with the audience and touched them and made them feel something. So I remember thinking, this isn't about the judges, this isn't about getting a chair turn, and this is not about you. It's about giving the people in the audience an experience and a moment. So that was how I got through my blind audition. And then every other big live performance after that, it was kind of a combination of a similar psychological pep talk with myself, plus just being so focused on the song and the performance and wanting to do a good job. So um, yeah.
That's a that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But after doing that and really prepping, doing like all the mental training you could before you getting on stage, does that really go into your acting as well? Of okay, I'm gonna focus, I gotta get in my zen, in my mode to really give this performance on a stage as well as acting or performing.
Definitely. I think most of the greatest actors in the world and the greatest acting coaches and the greatest directors know that one of the number one rules is when in doubt, or not even when in doubt, if you just want to basically do a good job, all your focus should be on the other person who's in the scene with you. And it's just about responding to them. Now, of course, there's so much more that goes into acting and storytelling than that. And that's what makes the really great actors great because they're doing so much more on top of that, character work and sensory work and whatever other kind of techniques they're bringing in to make their performance great. But at the very basic level, it should be about witnessing what's happening in front of you and just honestly responding to it. That's like your basic 101 acting lesson for sure.
Wow. So vocal training, acting coaches really takes a lot behind the scenes to get to a place of like where you are and to do what you do. It's a lot of work. And what, like, with all that work, what do you do in your free time? Like, if you have any?
Yeah. Um, what do I do? I do like to watch a lot of things because I'm obsessed with like disappearing into other worlds, whether it's a TV show or a docu-series or a movie or um, an album of someone's or a book. I just recently got back into podcasts and I'm fully addicted to this one called Morbid. Have you heard of it?
What's it about?
Oh my god. Okay. So I've never been into like murder content because it's dark and I don't typically feel the need to bring that energy into my life. But my husband and I discovered this podcast called Morbid because it was on the top 5 like most listened to or best whatever on the podcast app. And it's these two girls who I'm pretty sure are sisters, although I don't know for sure. And they talk about some of the craziest murders that have happened throughout history. But because they're sisters or best friends, their rapport is incredible. And it sounds like two friends or sisters just kind of bantering, almost gossiping. The way that they talk about these horrible, horrible things is so palatable that I'm able to take it in. They'll be talking about a murder and they'll say like, "This guy was a fucking monster," you know. So it's like, oh yeah, I can listen to this, and now I'm addicted. I'm just fully addicted.
Oh, now I know I gotta write it down because that's what I'm gonna listen to as soon as this is over.
It's good, but yeah, in addition to inhaling different forms of content, um, I love spending time outside, and I love spending time with my friends. I'm a big social butterfly, not necessarily in groups, although I do love a good group when the dynamic is tight. I'm a big one-on-one person though. I just love to like sit and just talk about all the feelings and like hear what people are going through and share what I'm going through and that sort of thing.
Dang, that's dope.
Yeah, what we're doing right now.
Hey, for real. Um, to go back a step, you attended Carnegie Mellon. How was it like being all the way over there, and it's in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So you're in Pittsburgh from LA. What was that dynamic like in that really environment change for you?
Um, Ultimately, it was great. At the time, I think it was a little traumatic for me. I had never really thrived in an independent way before. I think I did sleepaway camp once and came home early. I just had no idea how to be alone with myself. Looking back, I now know that I was early on like severely codependent. So being independent was not like it was like triggering for me, and I would like freak out. Um, and I remember leading up to my time going away to college, everybody was kind of projecting excitement onto me, like, "You must be so excited. How do you feel?" Questions like that. And I just kind of like withdrew and went within because that was all I knew how to do. That was a coping mechanism. I would just kind of shut down and go, I don't know, because what could I possibly be excited about? I had no idea what I was walking into. Whereas, like, for some people, they can just be excited because something new is happening. But at the time, I was terrified and really, really kept to myself at the beginning. Somebody gave me a nickname. I think it was like Elusive Lilli or something, because everybody else in my class had gotten together to meet and hang out, and I just kind of like kept to myself because I was just so scared of everything. Um, and also, all my friends lived together in the same dorm buildings or dorm buildings that were near each other. I wound up in this building that was like way, way far away from campus. So I just felt very separate from everyone, and I was also kind of separating myself in some ways. So my freshman year was pretty tough and kind of traumatic and like dark. Amidst a lot of joy and fun and amazing stuff, that like underneath, that's definitely what was going on. And then I kind of just learned to grow up and learned self-care and, mental health. That was really the beginning of me learning how to take care of myself, as it is for most people.
Wow, that's
And ultimately, I learned to love Pittsburgh. I miss it dearly. Shout out to Pittsburgh.
hey, Pittsburgh is a unique place.
Have you been?
Yeah.
It's very special.
And I don't know, it's so weird because you have all the factories right there downtown, and then when you look at the hills, it's like all the buildings are just like almost stacked right on top of each other's.
Yeah, I wonder what it would be like now if it has changed.
Same, I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, same. It's been, my gosh, 2012. I mean, 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So being in Pittsburgh freshman year, what was the change like from okay, I'm reserved, I really don't want to get out of my comfort bubble to now I'm performing, I'm on stage. When was that assurance of, you know what, like I'm just coming out of my shell?
Part of it was definitely a slow progression. Um, but actually, it's funny that you said that. It made me remember that my freshman year, we had to do something called, this was actually pretty early on in the year, we had to do something called a self concert where you could do anything you wanted for this presentation, but it just needed to give everybody a picture of you and of who you were. So some people did a slideshow, some people choreographed a dance, some people put a skit together, and I had no idea what to do. But I had been thinking for a while that I wanted to cut my hair, and at the time my hair was very, 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 very long, and I had never cut it before. Um, and I knew I wanted to cut it, and I knew I didn't know what to do for this project, so I decided to cut my hair in front of the class. So I played, the songs that I chose are very telling of like where I was at, not only within my music tastes, but just like as a human being. I played two songs. During the first song, I just sort of sat and like did expressive movements that were kind of like expressing that I was like timid and like nervous. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I think it was like, like it's like so embarrassing. Um, I created little vignettes with my body that communicated like vulnerable, sad, scared, whatever, like different feelings in that world. And the first song I played was a Weepies a Weepies tune called oh my god, what was it called? Do you know the Weepies?
No, I'm gonna have to look them up.
Hardcore emo, like high school emo music for sure. Not like like screamer emo, like sad girl emo.
I'm gonna have to check
Um
them out.
I can't remember the song, which is unfortunate, but it was a Weepies tune. And then the second tune I did, this is so funny. I was never a big Mandy Moore fan, but for some reason when she came out with this one album, it was like, oh, what was it called? Like Wild, or like something about how she was like coming out of her shell. And it was a very kind of earthy, folky album. Um, and there was the song she had, I think it was called Extraordinary. It's like, and now I'm ready, and now I'm ready, and now I'm ready to be extraordinary. So that was the second song I played. And during that song, I braided my hair, and then I took a scissor and I just cut off my entire braid. And when it was over, like my heart was pounding, and I ended up bursting into tears. Although I remember at the time not knowing why, because I wasn't sad. I think it was just having all this attention and energy focused at me. It was like overwhelming. Um, and after I cut my hair, my teacher noticed a change in me. She was like, she said, my friends all tease me for this because she literally said, Lily's changed. So that was like a big coming out moment for me because I couldn't hide behind my long hair anymore, and I had to just kind of be free.
And look where being free is taking you.
I'm back with short hair. I just cut it again.
Wow.
Full circle. 10 years later, you got to cut it off again.
Dang, that means new restart, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And speaking of restart, what do you got planned for 2022?
I definitely am going to release some music, which I still haven't figured out how to not have that take forever. It takes forever to do that. I don't know why. Um, and I want to play a bunch of shows. I definitely had plans to have done more shows. Well, that's interesting. I just had a realization. I had plans to do a bunch of shows for my original music, and it's ended up not happening quite like that. But I have done a lot of shows. They just weren't all for me. So interesting how when you manifest something, it kind of happens a little differently. But just performing a lot now that the world is, at least where I am, pretty much back open. Writing a lot, and yeah, releasing music, and just kind of really, really trying to stay on the betterment track. I go through these phases where I dive in head first to the things that I want to be better at, and then finding the balance within all that is sometimes hard for me because I'll go too hard and I'll burn out a little bit. So like I take voice lessons, and I just started taking piano lessons again because I'm just trying to get better. I was in acting class again for a minute, and then I stopped, and so I'm about to get back into class. So just trying to produce my own content while also like ingesting learning and knowledge from other people who know better than me. um, I think I think for some people during lockdown and during the pandemic, they felt this pressure to um, like do a lot within it because they had all this free time. And I feel that pressure now. Like now that things are back to normal, I feel like I have to deliver and like do what I intended to do 2 years ago. You know.
What's your creative process like? Because that sounds like a lot that you have to deal with and to constantly work when you start writing. How's that release? Just
The writing process for me happens in a couple of different ways. The intentional, when I'm doing it intentionally, I'll usually free write for a bit first, like 3 pages or so, um, and then go back and see what jumps out at me from the page, and then put something together from that. That's like physical writing. And then whenever I'm in the car, there's certain times in our life when we're able to go on autopilot, and obviously you shouldn't be on autopilot when you're driving, but I think because my body and my mind are so used to driving, they know what to do, so my mind is able to relax in a way that lets inspiration come through. So much of my writing has happened when I'm in the car. um and then also, I find that if I'm really inside of a feeling, not quite, it's like partly being in a reaction, when you like something happens and you're reacting to it. So like maybe not like the very first reaction, maybe like a reaction that comes a little later on, but that's still fresh enough. I find writing in that space to be really fruitful. And some of my best stuff has happened when I've written from that place of inner reaction, because whether or not it's fully, logical, it's the most potent and kind of free of judgment. So a lot of the good tidbits come out during that heightened time, and it's a healthy way to handle, you know, being at a 10, because nobody else is having to deal with it. You can just write it down or speak it into a voice memo. I am so big on voice memos. They're huge for me.
and it's so pure because your mind is like, okay, focusing on the road, and it's not like you're sitting there with a pen and paper and you're like, okay, should I say this or should I say that? It's more like a naturally, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I want to say, and just an authentic you. So
Yeah, I think I learned it from. Did you ever watch Felicity or hear about it? That show.
no, I think I heard of the writing part, but I don't want to say yes because
Felicity is like a iconic '90s like sad girl or like shy girl um show that was on. I think it was on the WB. It was J.J. Abrams, which is funny because he's known mostly for sci-fi now. But the main character, would send these tapes to her best friend. So she would speak into this cassette tape and then mail it to her friend. And that show is like my North Star. And so I think that's where I got the idea to do it. But now, I can just do it into my phone, not a cassette tape.
It's technology, right?
Yeah.
um so on top of that, where can our listeners like find you at? For everyone out there that's like, okay, Lilli sounds like a dope person, I have to go check her out on social media, where can I go follow her, find her at?
So the place that I spend the most time is Instagram for sure. And I am working on getting better at using the other platforms. Right now, my TikTok barely represents me as a singer or an artist. I've mostly just done a lot of silly like filters and challenges and things because I think they're hilarious. Um, I have a lot of covers up on YouTube and then a couple of originals. And those are the main spots. I do have some stuff on Spotify, but that's what I'm looking to increase is getting my original music streaming because right now it's just been in a live setting. I haven't recorded and released any of it except for with my band Lily and the Honey. So that's one project, and then my individual solo artist project is just Lilli Passero, and they're both on Spotify. But right now, if you go on Spotify under Lilli Passero, you'll just see covers, mostly from The Voice, and then one I did a cover of Unchained Melody with one of my bandmates, and I released that because it was on what's it called SoundCloud for a long time, and people were really enjoying it. So I thought I should just let it stream on the other spots as well. So look forward to new music, and those are the main spots that you'll find me.
And everybody listening out there, you have to go check out Lilli because her voice is like creme de la creme. But everybody out there, anytime, you deserve it. And everyone out there listening you have to go check out Lilli's music and go check out her Instagram and go find great music.
Thank you for saying that.
Anytime. And thank you for being a part of the podcast.
Hey, this is Lilli Passero, and you're listening to the Love of It podcast with the lovely Paris.